I stood in my daughter Sarah's kitchen, holding wedding venue payment confirmation worth $45,000, when I overheard her on the phone. My father. That pathetic old mechanic won't embarrass me at my wedding. 28 years fixing cars, living in that cramped house. My future in-laws own 3 country clubs. I told him not to come. I quietly folded the papers, slipped them into my pocket, and walked out through the back door, my hands steady, despite the crushing weight in my chest. The drive back to my modest 2-bedroom home felt longer than usual. Sarah's words echoed in my mind as I pulled into the driveway of the house she'd just called embarrassing. I sat in my truck for a moment, staring at the white siding I'd painted myself last summer, the garden Margaret and I had planted together 15 years ago, still blooming with roses and daisies. I made my way to the workshop behind the garage, my sanctuary, where metal met patience, and old things became beautiful again. The familiar smell of motor oil and leather polish greeted me as I flicked on the lights. 3 vintage cars sat in various stages of restoration. A 1967 Mustang Fastback, a 1959 Cadillac Eldorado, and a 1972 Corvette Stingray. Sarah had no idea about these beauties. She'd stopped coming to the workshop after Margaret passed 8 years ago, said it reminded her too much of Mom. She didn't know I'd sold 5 other complete restorations in the past few years. The 57 Chevy Bel Air went for $220,000, the 69 Camaro SS for $180,000, and the others for similar amounts. I pulled out the bottom drawer of my tool chest and retrieved the folder I kept hidden there. Bank statements, investment portfolios, property deeds. $4.2 million in assets, carefully accumulated over 40 years of 16-hour days, smart investments, and living well below our means. Margaret had insisted we never flaunt it. Money whispers, she used to say, it never shouts. The payment confirmation in my pocket crinkled as I sat down. I'd already paid for the entire wedding. Venue, catering, flowers, band, photographer, even her dress. $170,000 total. Sarah had handed me the bills without a word of thanks, just expectation as if my wallet was her birthright. My phone buzzed. Robert Chen, my lawyer and oldest friend, though I remembered Sarah's new rule about not mentioning her ethnic friends to James's family. Phil, you need to see something. Robert's voice was tight with anger. My daughter Amy was scrolling through Instagram and found something disturbing. What kind of something? Can you come by the office? This is better shown than told. I locked the workshop and drove downtown to Robert's law firm. He met me in the lobby, his usually cheerful face grim. In his office, he turned his laptop toward me. Amy follows James's sister Brittany on social media. Look at this post from last week. The screen showed a photo from what looked like an upscale charity event. The caption made my blood run cold. So inspired by my future sister-in-law, Sarah. Despite losing both parents tragically, she built herself up from nothing. A true orphan success story. Can't wait to officially welcome her to the family. The comments below were full of praise for Sarah's courage and resilience. One particularly lengthy comment from someone named Catherine Wellington James, who I assumed was James's mother, detailed how Sarah had overcome such loss with grace. There's more, Robert said quietly, clicking to another page. This is the wedding website they created. I read the Our Story section with growing disbelief. According to this fairy tale, Sarah had no living relatives. She'd supposedly worked 3 jobs to put herself through college after her parents died in a car accident when she was 16. The fiction was elaborate, detailed, and completely false. Robert, I drove her to college myself, helped her move into her dorm room 4 times. I know Phil. I was there for her high school graduation. Margaret made that huge banner, remember? I scrolled down to the guest list section. Password protected, but Robert had already worked his magic. My paralegal Jen is friends with one of the bridesmaids. She got us access, he explained. 250 guests. Not a single name I recognized from our side of the family. Not my brother Tom from Arizona. Not Margaret's sister Ruth from Oregon. Not even Sarah's godparents, Frank and Linda Morrison, who'd sent her birthday cards every year since she was born. She's erased us. I said the words tasting like ash. Her entire family just deleted. Phil, I hate to ask, but has Sarah been having any financial troubles? This kind of deception usually has a motive beyond mere embarrassment. I thought about the joint accounts she'd convinced me to open 2 years ago. For emergencies, Dad, she'd said. You're getting older, and I should be able to help if something happens. I'd been touched by her concern, added her name to accounts with about $80,000. I should check those emergency accounts, I said. Robert's expression told me I wasn't going to like what I found. The next morning, I sat in my bank manager's office staring at transaction histories that made no sense. The emergency accounts were nearly empty. $80,000 withdrawn in increments over 2 years. Cash withdrawals, transfers to accounts I didn't recognize, payments to high-end retailers. Mr. Hartman, were you aware of these transactions? Janet, who'd been my bank manager for 15 years, looked concerned. No, I trusted my daughter. She said it was for emergencies. Janet printed out everything and handed me the stack. I'm sorry, Phil. We see this more often than you'd think. I left the bank and sat in my truck, calling the one person I knew could help. Thomas Mitchell, no relation to Sarah's forbidden name, had been a detective for 30 years before retiring to become a private investigator. I'd fixed his Crown Victoria for free during his divorce, when money was tight. He'd never forgotten. Phil Hartman, how's the restoration business? Tom, I need your help, professional help. His tone shifted immediately. What's going on? I explained everything. The wedding, the lies, the missing money. Tom listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. I could hear scratching through the phone. Can you meet me at the diner on 5th Street in an hour? He asked. Bring those bank statements and anything else you have. The Bluebird Diner hadn't changed in 30 years. Tom was already there, laptop open, coffee steaming. He looked exactly as he had as a detective. Sharp eyes that missed nothing, notebook at the ready. First things first, he said after I'd shown him everything. The money trail. These withdrawals match a pattern I've seen before. Someone building a nest egg or funding a lifestyle beyond their means. But I need to dig deeper. Whatever it costs, Tom. This one's on the house, Phil. Well, maybe you can look at my '68 Plymouth when we're done. He managed a small smile. Give me 48 hours to do preliminary work. I have a feeling this rabbit hole goes deep. 2 days later, Tom called me to his office. The small space above the insurance agency was cluttered, but organized walls covered with certificates and commendations from his police days. Sit down, Phil. You're not going to like this. He spread photos across his desk. Sarah entering and leaving various banks, office buildings, high-end stores. Timestamps showed these were during hours she'd told me she was at work. Your daughter has been busy. That consulting firm she claims to work for, she was laid off 6 months ago. But she's been maintaining the illusion, leaving the house at the same time every day. Then how is she affording? That's where it gets interesting. Remember those accounts you couldn't identify? They trace back to a shell company called SM Consulting, Sarah Miller Consulting. She's been telling James and his family that she runs a successful business. The website is impressive, full of fake client testimonials and stock photos. My daughter had created an entire fictional life. But Tom wasn't done. Phil, I need to ask you something delicate. Has Sarah mentioned anything about James's business partner, a man named Marcus Sterling? No, why? Tom pulled out another set of photos. Sarah entering the Grandview Hotel downtown. Marcus Sterling entering the same hotel 5 minutes later. Multiple dates, always Thursdays. James travels to Boston every Thursday for business, Tom said quietly. Has for the past year. I stared at the photos, trying to reconcile this stranger with the little girl who used to help me organize wrenches in the workshop, who'd cried when she accidentally stepped on a caterpillar. There's more. Marcus Sterling is married. His wife Patricia comes from old money. And here's the kicker. He's in serious financial trouble. Owes nearly $300,000 to some very unforgiving people. The kind who break more than contracts when you don't pay. You think he's using Sarah. I think they're using each other. But Phil, there's something else. Tom pulled out a final document. This is a rental application for a luxury condo downtown. 2 names on it, Marcus Sterling and Sarah Hartman. Dated 3 weeks from now, right after your daughter's wedding. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Sarah was planning to marry James for his money, then run off with Marcus. The elaborate lies about being an orphan meant no messy family interference. The stolen money from my accounts was probably funding their escape plan. Tom, what else did you find? Credit reports show inquiries in your name that you probably didn't authorize. Has Sarah ever had access to your personal information, social security number, birth date? She helped me file taxes 2 years ago when I was recovering from knee surgery. The realization hit like cold water. She has everything. Tom's expression confirmed my worst fears. You need to check your credit immediately. And Phil. This is just what I found in 48 hours. There's likely more. I spent the next 3 days in careful preparation. First, I pulled my credit reports. 4 credit cards I'd never opened, all maxed out on wedding expenses and luxury items. $40,000 in debt I didn't know existed. Sarah had been making minimum payments to keep them active, probably planning to max them completely before disappearing. I didn't call the police. Not yet. Instead, I documented everything meticulously. Every fraudulent charge, every forged signature, every lie. Robert helped me file fraud alerts and freeze my credit, but we didn't cancel the cards yet. I wanted Sarah to think her plan was still working. Next came the wedding vendors. I drove to each one personally. The venue coordinator, a polished woman named Elizabeth, pulled up my account. Mr. Hartman, everything is set for next Saturday. The final payment of $45,000 is due day of as arranged. I'd like to change the payment method, I said calmly. I'll need to be present to authorize it personally. She looked confused, but made the notation. Of course. Will you be walking your daughter down the aisle? That remains to be seen. I repeated this process with the caterer, the florist, the band, the photographer. Each vendor now required my physical presence for final payment. $170,000 in services, all hanging on my appearance. At home, I searched through Sarah's old room looking for anything she might have left behind. In the closet, I found a laptop bag. Inside, an old computer she'd said was broken. It powered on, just fine. The email drafts I found turned my stomach. Messages to Marcus planning their new life together. Calculations of how much she could extract from James in a divorce after getting her name on his family's assets. References to the old man's money that made it clear she'd been planning to drain my accounts completely once she had access to James's trust fund. One draft dated 3 months ago outlined her entire plan. Once I'm married, and on the trust we wait 6 months to avoid suspicion. File for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. Texas is a community property state. Even with a prenup, I'll get enough. Plus, what we've saved from Dad. He'll never press charges. Too embarrassed. We can be in Costa Rica before anyone realizes what happened. I took photos of everything, backed them up in multiple locations. Then, I did something I'd never imagined. I hired a second private investigator to watch Marcus Sterling. Meanwhile, I began my own preparations. I moved all my investment accounts into the irrevocable trust Margaret and I had set up years ago. Transferred the house deed into it as well. Made my brother Tom the successor trustee. If Sarah had plans for my assets, after I was gone, she'd find nothing but empty hands. I also called Dorothy Wellington, James's grandmother. I'd researched the family thoroughly by now. Dorothy was 91, sharp as a razor, and the matriarch who'd built their fortune from a single drugstore into a pharmaceutical empire. She still kept an office downtown and went in 3 days a week. Her secretary put me through immediately when I mentioned it concerned James and the wedding. Mr. Hartman, I don't believe we've been introduced. I'm Dorothy Wellington James. Mrs. Wellington James, I'm Sarah's father. The one she told you was dead. Silence. Then, I see. Would you be free for tea tomorrow at 2? I believe we have much to discuss. The next afternoon, I found myself in Dorothy's penthouse office, overlooking the city. She was exactly as I'd pictured. Elegant, sharp-eyed, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my truck. But her handshake was firm, and her gaze direct. I've always found Sarah's orphan story suspicious, she said, pouring tea from a silver service. No photos, no documents, no extended family appearing for the wedding. In my experience, people who lose their parents young cling to every memento. I placed a folder on her desk. Photos of Sarah's childhood birthday parties, graduations. Her birth certificate listing Margaret and me as parents. Recent photos Tom had taken of me, very much alive. Dorothy studied each item carefully. She's been lying to my grandson. That's not the worst of it, I'm afraid. I showed her the evidence of the affair with Marcus, the financial fraud, the plans to divorce James after accessing the family trust. Dorothy's expression grew colder with each revelation. Mr. Hartman, may I call you Phil? I built this family's wealth with my bare hands. I started working at 14, saved every penny, bought my first drugstore at 25. I know the value of honest work and the poison of greed. She stood, walked to the window. James is a good boy, but too trusting. His parents indulged him. He sees what he wants to see. She turned back to me. You've been very thorough. What do you intend to do with this information? I want to protect your grandson while ensuring my daughter faces the consequences of her choices. But I need to do it in a way that gives her a chance to come clean first. Dorothy smiled for the first time. You're a better parent than she deserves. Very well. I have a proposition. There's a family gathering scheduled for Friday, the day before the wedding. James plans to add Sarah to several family trusts. The documents are already drawn up. Let me guess. Sarah suggested the timing. Indeed. Claimed she wanted to enter the marriage as a full partner. Dorothy's laugh was sharp. I've been in business 70 years, Phil. I know a snake when I see one. But I needed proof. You've given me that. We spent the next 2 hours planning. Dorothy would ensure the entire family attended Friday's gathering. The trust documents would be there, but so would I. Sarah would have one chance to tell the truth before we revealed everything. One more thing, Dorothy said as I prepared to leave. Your daughter's friend, Maria Santos. She reached out to my secretary last week, claimed she had concerns about the wedding, but wouldn't elaborate. Maria. Sarah's best friend since middle school, recently cut off for being too middle class, according to what Tom had discovered. I'll speak with her, I said. Please do. And Phil. Whatever happens, you've shown more grace than most would. Your wife would be proud. As I left Dorothy's office, my phone buzzed. Tom, the investigator. Phil, you need to know something. I've been watching Marcus like you asked. He met with some unsavory characters today. The kind who collect debts with baseball bats. He's more desperate than we thought. This wedding might be his last chance to avoid the hospital. The stakes had just gotten higher. Sarah wasn't just playing with hearts and money anymore. She was playing with dangerous people who wouldn't care that she was my daughter when Marcus couldn't pay. I met Maria Santos at the coffee shop where she worked part-time while finishing her teaching degree. She looked tired, her usual bright smile dimmed. When she saw me, her eyes widened. Mr. Hartman, I didn't expect. Sarah said you weren't coming to the wedding. That's what we need to talk about, Maria. Her shift ended in 20 minutes. I waited watching her work with the same cheerfulness she'd shown as a kid when she and Sarah would help Margaret bake cookies. When she finally sat across from me, I could see the hurt in her eyes. She told me not to come either, Maria said quietly. Said I wouldn't fit in with James's crowd. 20 years of friendship, and suddenly I'm too poor for her wedding. When did she start changing? About a year ago, right after she met James. But Mr. Hartman, It got worse when she met Marcus. My expression must have shown my knowledge because Maria nodded. You know about him. I tried to warn her. Marcus is bad news. He loans money to desperate people, then collects with interest they can never pay. Sarah thinks he's some successful investor, but I know people who've dealt with him. Maria, I need your help. Sarah's in deeper trouble than she realizes. I showed her some of the evidence. Not everything. Maria didn't need to know about the fraud against me. But enough. The lies about being an orphan, the affair, the plans to defraud James's family. Maria's hands shook as she looked through the photos. This isn't the Sarah I grew up with. Mrs. Hartman would be heartbroken. Which is why I need to stop this wedding without destroying Sarah completely. She needs to face consequences, but she also needs a chance to redeem herself. Will you help? What do you need me to do? You're still the maid of honor officially. On paper. She hasn't spoken to me in 2 months except to text me the dress requirements. I need you to attend the family gathering on Friday. Bring someone who might help James understand the truth about Marcus. Maria's face lit up with understanding. Patricia Sterling, Marcus's wife. She hired my cousin as their nanny. I could arrange an introduction. Can she be trusted? Patricia knows about the affairs. All of them. She stays for their daughters, but she's been documenting everything for a divorce. My cousin says Patricia would love nothing more than to expose Marcus publicly. We arranged the details. Maria would approach Patricia, carefully explain the situation. If Patricia agreed, she'd attend Friday's gathering as Maria's +1. Meanwhile, I had another ally to cultivate. The next day, I visited Frank and Linda Morrison, Sarah's godparents. They lived in a modest ranch house 40 minutes outside the city, where Frank ran a small accounting firm and Linda taught piano. Phil. Linda hugged me tightly at the door. We've been so worried. Sarah hasn't returned our calls in months. Over coffee in their sunny kitchen, I explained everything. Frank, ever the accountant, immediately understood the financial implications. Identity theft, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud. Phil, these are felonies. Sarah could face serious jail time. Which is why I need to handle this carefully. I want her to face consequences, not destroy her life entirely. Linda had tears in her eyes. We remember the little girl who played piano recitals in this very room. What happened? Greed, Frank said simply. I've seen it in my practice. People start small, justify each step, until they're in so deep they can't see daylight. They agreed to help. Frank would review all the financial documents, create a clear paper trail that could be used for legal action if necessary. Linda would reach out to other family members Sarah had cut off, gathering a group of people who loved her despite her actions. That evening, I received an unexpected call. Amy Chen, Robert's daughter, who'd first found the social media posts. Mr. Hartman, I've been following Brittany Wellington James's social media. She just posted something interesting. She texted me screenshots. Brittany had posted about the family gathering, calling it a special celebration for Sarah joining the family officially. The comments revealed that several of James's cousins had doubts about Sarah's background, but were keeping quiet to avoid family drama. Another piece fell into place. Sarah's lies weren't as airtight as she believed. People had suspicions. They just needed permission to voice them. Thursday arrived with new urgency. Tom called with updates on Marcus. He's getting desperate, Phil. Met with his creditors again. They gave him 1 week after the wedding to pay in full. He's counting on Sarah's plan working. What happens if it doesn't? Best case, they take everything he owns and rough him up. Worst case, they go after people close to him to send a message. Sarah was in danger and didn't know it. Despite everything, she was still my daughter. I couldn't let her get hurt, even if she'd hurt me deeply. I made one final preparation. I visited Margaret's grave, something I did every Sunday, but needed especially now. The headstone read, "Beloved wife and mother," and fresh flowers from my garden adorned the vase. She's lost her way, Maggie, I said to the carved granite. I don't know if I can bring her back, but I have to try. You'd never forgive me if I didn't." The wind rustled through the oak trees Margaret had loved. For a moment, I could almost hear her voice. "People make mistakes, Phil. But family means giving them a chance to make things right." Friday morning, I dressed in my best suit, the one Margaret had helped me pick for our 35th anniversary. In the inside pocket, I placed 3 items: the wedding payment confirmations, a photo of Sarah's college graduation, with Margaret and me beaming beside her, and the letter I'd written explaining everything. My phone rang. Dorothy Wellington James. "Phil, everything is arranged. The gathering starts at 2. James's parents are expecting to sign the trust papers at 3. Are you ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be." "Good. Oh, and Phil, I've arranged a small surprise of my own. My personal attorney will be present, just in case we need legal weight behind our revelations." I thought of Sarah probably picking up her wedding dress right now, making final preparations for her big day. She had no idea her house of cards was about to collapse. Part of me wanted to warn her, give her one last chance to come clean on her own. But I remembered the recording Tom had made of her conversation with Marcus just yesterday. The old fool probably doesn't even check his credit cards. By the time he figures it out, we'll be long gone. No. Sarah had made her choices. Now it was time for consequences. Friday morning brought a flurry of activity. I started by visiting each wedding vendor one final time, confirming that without my physical presence, no services would be rendered. The venue coordinator seemed puzzled, but professional. "Mr. Hartman, I must say most fathers are eager to hand over the checkbook and disappear. Your involvement is refreshing." If only she knew. At noon, I met with Robert at his office. He'd prepared everything: fraud documentation, copies of forged signatures, bank statements, showing the systematic theft. His paralegal had organized it all into a comprehensive file. "Phil, once this comes out, there's no going back. The credit card companies will press charges whether you want them to or not." "I understand, but she needs to face this." My phone buzzed. Maria texted Patricia Sterling, confirmed. "She's bringing documentation about Marcus. She says she's ready to burn it all down." Another text from Tom. "Marcus just met with wedding photographer. Overhead him saying after tomorrow, all problems solved. Stay alert." At 1:30, I drove to the Wellington James estate. The massive colonial mansion sat on 40 acres of perfectly manicured grounds. Luxury cars already lined the circular driveway. I parked my restored '67 Mustang among the Mercedes and BMWs, its classic lines drawing appreciative looks from the valet. Dorothy met me at the door herself, dismissing the butler with a wave. "Phil, you clean up nicely. Margaret chose well." She guided me to a side study. "The family is gathering in the main drawing room. Sarah should arrive any moment. Are you prepared for this?" "I've been preparing since I heard her call my life worthless." Dorothy's hand touched my arm briefly. "Remember, we're not here to destroy. We're here to reveal truth. What happens next depends on Sarah." We heard voices in the foyer. Sarah's laugh, bright and false, echoed through the marble halls. James's voice followed, warm and unsuspecting. "That's our cue," Dorothy said. "I'll go greet them. Wait 10 minutes, then join us." Those 10 minutes felt like hours. I reviewed everything in my mind: the evidence, the allies in place, the escape routes if things went badly. Through the door, I heard the gathering crowd, champagne glasses clinking, Sarah's voice, holding court with stories of her fictional business success. Finally, I walked into the drawing room. The space was magnificent. 20-foot ceilings, crystal chandeliers, oil paintings of Wellington James ancestors, watching from gilded frames. About 30 people mingled in expensive clothes, champagne flutes in hand. Sarah stood near the fireplace, radiant in a designer dress I recognized from the fraudulent credit card statements. James beside her, his arm around her waist, looked every inch the devoted fiancé. His parents flanked them, beaming with pride at their soon-to-be daughter-in-law. Then Sarah saw me. The champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering on the Italian marble floor. The room fell silent, all eyes turning between us. "Hello, Sarah," I said quietly. James looked confused. Darling, who is this? Sarah's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. I saw the calculations racing behind her eyes. Deny, deflect, lie. But Dorothy stepped forward before Sarah could speak. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Phil Hartman, Sarah's father. The silence deepened. James turned to Sarah, his face a study in confusion. Your father. But you said. She said I was dead. I walked further into the room, noting Maria near the back with an elegant blonde woman, who must be Patricia Sterling. Sorry to disappoint, but I'm very much alive. Have been for all 68 years of my life. Sarah found her voice. This is a misunderstanding. This man is confused. I don't know him. I pulled out the photo from my pocket. Sarah's college graduation. Margaret and I flanking her, all three of us smiling at the camera. I handed it to James. University of Texas 4 years ago. That's my late wife Margaret on the left. We were so proud that day. James stared at the photo, then at Sarah. I don't understand. You told me your parents died when you were 16. Car accident. You said you had no family. Catherine Wellington. James's mother stepped forward. Sarah, explain this. Now. Sarah's mask finally cracked. It's complicated. My father and I had a falling out. It was easier to say I was dead. I pulled out more photos. Here's her high school graduation. Her 16th birthday. Very much alive parents in attendance. First day of kindergarten. Should I continue? Dorothy took control. Everyone please sit. I believe we need to hear the full truth before the trust documents are signed. People moved to the various sofas and chairs. Sarah remained standing, isolated now, as James stepped away from her. I saw her eyes dart to the exits, calculating escape routes. Sarah. I said, you have one chance here. Tell them the truth. All of it. She lifted her chin, trying to reclaim some dignity. Fine. Yes, Phil is my father. I told a small lie because I was embarrassed. He's a mechanic. He fixes cars. Look at him. Oil under his fingernails driving that old Mustang. James's family owns pharmaceutical companies. I just wanted to fit in. A small lie. Maria stepped forward, Patricia Sterling beside her. Sarah, you told me to practice crying about your dead parents. You made up an entire story about being an orphan who worked 3 jobs. Sarah's face flushed. Maria, you don't understand. You've always been content with mediocrity. Some of us want more. More like Marcus Sterling. Patricia spoke for the first time. Yes, I know all about Thursday afternoons at the Grandview Hotel. Every single Thursday. James went pale. Marcus, my business partner Marcus. Patricia smiled coldly. My soon-to-be ex-husband Marcus, who's been sleeping with your fiancé for 6 months. I have photos, hotel receipts, even some very interesting text messages about their plans after your wedding. The room erupted. James's father jumped to his feet. Catherine Wellington. James demanded to see evidence. Dorothy remained calm, a small smile playing at her lips. Sarah tried damage control. This is ridiculous. These people are lying. James, you know me. Would I do something like that? Do you mean would you lie? I asked. Would you steal? Would you betray someone who loves you? I turned to the room. My daughter has stolen $80,000 from joint accounts I trustingly opened with her. She's opened credit cards in my name, accumulating $40,000 in fraudulent debt. She's been fired from her job for 6 months while pretending to run a consulting firm that doesn't exist. Robert stepped forward with the documentation. Everything Phil says is documented here. Bank records, credit reports, fraudulent applications. This constitutes identity theft and wire fraud under Texas law. Sarah's legs seemed to give out. She sank onto a chair. Daddy, please. It was the first time she'd called me that in years, but I couldn't stop now. There's more, Tom said, entering the room. I hadn't seen him arrive. Ms. Hartman and Marcus Sterling have been planning to divorce James after gaining access to family trusts. I have copies of emails discussing their plans to flee to Costa Rica with the money. Dorothy's attorney, a stern woman in her 60s, spoke up. Mr. Wellington James, I strongly advise against signing any documents, adding Ms. Hartman to family assets. But the final blow came from Patricia Sterling. One more thing everyone should know. My husband owes $300,000 to some very dangerous people. He's been promising them a big payday after this wedding. When he doesn't deliver, she shrugged. Well, they know about Sarah. They know she's the key to his plan. Sarah went white. What do you mean they know about me? I mean, darling, that you've been playing with fire. These aren't bankers who send polite letters. These are people who break things. And people. The room was in chaos now. James had sunk into a chair, his head in his hands. His parents were arguing with each other. Cousins were whispering, some looking satisfied that their suspicions were confirmed. Dorothy clapped her hands once. The sharp sound cut through the noise. Enough. Sarah, you will leave this house immediately. The wedding is canceled. All vendor contracts will be void. Phil has ensured that by requiring his presence for payment. Haven't you, Phil? I nodded. James. Dorothy continued, consider yourself fortunate. A divorce would have been far more expensive than a canceled wedding. As for you, Marcus Sterling. She looked at Patricia. I believe you have information the FBI would find interesting about his money-lending activities. Patricia smiled. Already delivered to them this morning. Sarah stood on shaking legs. You've ruined everything. All of you. I was just trying to have a better life. No, I said quietly. You were trying to steal a better life. There's a difference. Security appeared at Dorothy's subtle signal. As they escorted Sarah out, she turned to look at me one last time. The mask was completely gone now, leaving only a frightened young woman who'd gambled everything and lost. I hope you're satisfied, she spat. No, Sarah. I'm heartbroken, but I'm also your father, which is why I'm not pressing charges. Yet. You have 48 hours to make arrangements to repay everything you stole. Robert will handle the details. As the door closed behind her, I felt every one of my 68 years. The room slowly emptied as family members processed what they'd witnessed. James approached me, eyes red. I loved her, he said simply. I know. I loved her too. Still do. That's why this had to happen. He shook my hand and walked away. Dorothy appeared at my elbow. You did the right thing, Phil. Sometimes love means letting someone face consequences. Will you still help Marcus's creditors find him? Her smile was sharp. Oh, I think Mr. Sterling will find that his problems are just beginning. My attorney has some interesting connections in law enforcement. Saturday arrived with the kind of perfect weather that mocks human drama. Clear skies, gentle breeze, the sort of day Margaret would have called wedding blessed. I dressed carefully in my old work clothes and drove to the Rosewood Country Club. The venue was in full wedding day preparation. Staff scurried about with flowers, tables, chairs. The wedding coordinator, Elizabeth, spotted me immediately. Mr. Hartman, thank goodness you're here. We've been trying to reach your daughter all morning. The final payments won't be made. The wedding is canceled. Her professional smile faltered. I see. But the contracts clearly state that payments are due day of event, which is why I'm here to inform you personally that there is no event. But the deposits are forfeited, I understand. Those were paid with credit cards that were fraudulently obtained in my name. You'll be hearing from the credit card company's fraud departments. I spent the next 2 hours visiting each vendor. The florist had already prepared $20,000 in arrangements. The caterer had prepared food for 250 guests. The band had driven in from Houston. Each was professionally upset, but legally bound by contracts Sarah had signed, assuming I would simply pay. At the final stop, the photographer's studio, I found an unexpected scene. Sarah sat in the waiting area, still in her wedding dress. She looked up when I entered, mascara streaking down her cheeks. I thought maybe. She gestured helplessly at the dress. If I just showed up, if everything was ready, James would forgive me. We could work it out. Sarah James filed a restraining order this morning. His family's attorney delivered it to your apartment. She laughed bitterly. Of course he did. The Wellington James protect their own. She stood, the elaborate dress rustling. Do you know how much this dress cost? $12,000 on a credit card in my name. I was going to pay you back. With what? The money you planned to steal from James in the divorce. She had no answer for that. The photographer emerged, saw me, and quickly retreated. Smart man. Daddy, Sarah said. And again, that childhood name hit me like a physical blow. What am I supposed to do now? I have nothing. No job, no money, no friends. Marcus won't answer my calls. The apartment wants me out by Monday. First, you're going to take off that dress and return it. The store might give you partial credit. Then, you're going to get a job. A real one. Pay back what you stole, rebuild your life honestly. That's it. That's your fatherly advice, get a job. I pulled out the letter I'd written days ago. No, this is my fatherly advice. Read it when you're ready to hear it. She took the envelope with shaking hands. I suppose you're happy. You got your revenge for me calling your life worthless. No, Sarah. I'm not happy. Your mother would have been heartbroken to see what you've become. But she also would have believed you could change. I'm giving you that chance. I turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Marcus Sterling was arrested this morning. Turns out he was running an illegal loan operation. Patricia gave the FBI everything. You might want to distance yourself from him. Sarah sank back into the chair, the wedding dress pooling around her like white sea foam. Everyone knows, don't they? About the lies, the stealing everything. In our community, yes. James's family made sure of that. But Texas is a big state, Sarah. You can start over, just not on someone else's dime this time. I left her there, a bride without a wedding, a schemer without a scheme. Outside, the perfect weather continued its mockery. I sat in my Mustang for a moment, letting the emotions wash over me. My phone buzzed, a text from Tom. Marcus flipped on his creditors to avoid prosecution. Federal witness protection. Sarah dodged a bullet she didn't even know was coming. Another from Dorothy. Thank you for protecting my grandson. James is hurt, but will heal. Sarah. I texted back, starting to face reality. What happens next is up to her. That evening, I sat in my workshop working on the Corvette's engine. The familiar routine of pistons and valves, the honest work of restoration, soothed my battered spirit. Frank and Linda Morrison stopped by with a casserole and quiet sympathy. Any word from Sarah? Linda asked. She returned the dress. Got back $8,000. It's a start. Frank shook his head. The identity theft charges? I'm not pressing them. The credit card companies might. But Robert thinks we can negotiate payment plans instead of prosecution. If Sarah cooperates. You're a better man than most Phil Hartman. After they left, I found myself looking at old photo albums. Sarah at 5, covered in finger paint, grinning. At 10, proudly showing off her first repaired bicycle chain. I'd taught her myself. At 15, rolling her eyes at Margaret's camera, but secretly pleased. Where had that girl gone? My phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Hartman. This is Patricia Sterling. I wanted to thank you. Your expose gave me the courage to finally leave Marcus, and to protect myself and my daughters from his debts. You're welcome. What will you do now? My family has a ranch in Montana. We're leaving tonight. Fresh start for all of us. She paused. Your daughter is lucky to have you, even if she doesn't realize it yet. After we hung up, I returned to the Corvette. Work, I understood. Metal could be fixed, restored, made beautiful again. People were more complicated. Around midnight, unable to sleep, I drove past Sarah's apartment complex. Her car was there, lights on in her unit. Was she reading my letter? Planning her next move? Or just mourning the life she'd almost stolen? I didn't knock. Some journeys had to be taken alone. Sunday morning brought unexpected visitors. Maria arrived with coffee and pastries, followed by several family members Sarah had cut off. My brother Tom had driven in from Arizona. Margaret's sister Ruth from Oregon. The Morrisons. Even some of Sarah's old high school friends who'd heard the news. "We're not here to gloat," Ruth said firmly. "We're here to figure out how to help Sarah find her way back." We spent hours discussing options. Tom offered to hire Sarah at his Phoenix construction company. Honest work, far from her mistakes. Ruth suggested counseling may be a program for people who'd lost their ethical way. Maria volunteered to reach out when Sarah was ready. "She needs to hit bottom first," Frank said wisely. "Can't help someone who doesn't want help." That evening alone again, I returned to Margaret's grave. The flowers I'd left Thursday were wilting. I replaced them with fresh roses from our garden. She's lost Maggie, but our friends haven't given up on her. Neither will I. The cemetery was peaceful birds singing evening songs. Somewhere in the city, Sarah was facing her first night of real consequences. Somewhere else, James was mourning a love that was never real. And Marcus Sterling was in federal custody, his house of cards collapsed. But here in this quiet place, where love endured beyond death, I found hope. People could change. Mistakes could be redeemed. Sarah had fallen far, but she was still breathing, still capable of choosing a different path. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Dad, I read your letter. Every word. I don't deserve your faith in me, but I want to try to earn it. Can we talk tomorrow? S." I typed back, "Bluebird Diner, 8 a.m. Coffee's on me." "Thank you." 2 words. But they were a start. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzly, matching the subdued mood as I entered the Bluebird Diner at 7:45. I wanted to be there first, to choose the booth in the back, where Margaret and I used to share Sunday breakfast. The coffee was already hot and black when Sarah walked in at exactly 8. She looked different. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by jeans and a simple sweater I recognized from years ago. No makeup, hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger, more like the daughter I remembered. "Hi, Daddy." "Hello, Sarah. You hungry?" She managed a small smile. "When's the last time you saw me turn down Bluebird's pancakes?" We ordered. Pancakes for her, eggs and bacon for me. The familiar ritual of pouring syrup, adding cream to coffee, gave us something to do with our hands while finding words. "I've been up all night," Sarah finally said. "Reading your letter over and over. Thinking about Mom, about everything you wrote." The letter had been 12 pages handwritten. Everything from her first steps to her college graduation. How Margaret and I had saved every penny for her education. How we'd chosen to live simply so she could have opportunities. How love wasn't measured in designer labels or country club memberships, but in sacrifice and honesty. "I keep trying to pinpoint when I became this person," she continued. "When I started believing that your life, your work wasn't enough." "When did you—" She thought carefully. "Maybe when James took me to his family's estate the first time. Everything was so perfect, so effortless. They never worried about bills or car repairs or mortgages. I wanted that ease, that security. So you decided to steal it." I convinced myself it wasn't stealing, just borrowing until I could pay it back. Each lie made the next one easier. She pushed pancake pieces around her plate. "Do you know what the worst part is? I was good at it. The lying came so naturally." "What changed?" "Saturday, sitting in that wedding dress in the photographer's studio waiting for a groom who would never come. I realized I'd created an elaborate fiction that required constant maintenance. Even if the wedding had happened, I would have spent my whole life terrified of being exposed." We ate in silence for a while. Around us, the diner hummed with normal life. Truckers grabbing coffee, office workers on their way to honest jobs. "I went to see James yesterday," Sarah said quietly. I set down my fork. "Sarah, the restraining order?" "I didn't violate it. I sent a message through his attorney asking for 5 minutes. He agreed to meet in his lawyer's office." She pulled out an envelope. "I gave him this." Inside was a check for $30,000. I recognized the amount, most of what she'd gotten back from the dress, plus what remained in the account she'd drained. It doesn't cover everything I cost his family, but it's a start. I also wrote a full confession about lying to him about Marcus, everything. His lawyer said it would help with their insurance claims for the wedding costs. That took courage. No, Dad. Courage would have been telling the truth from the beginning. This is just damage control. She met my eyes. I need to ask you something. In your letter, you mentioned Mom had a brother in Seattle who runs a restaurant. Uncle Pete. He and Margaret were close before she died. Do you think he'd give me a job I need to start over somewhere new? Somewhere I can work honestly without my reputation following me. I'd actually called Pete the night before, hoping Sarah would ask. He needs a bookkeeper, someone to manage inventory, handle payroll. Honest work, decent pay. Small apartment above the restaurant included. Her eyes filled with tears. You already called him. Margaret would have, so I did. I'll pay back every penny I stole from you, Dad. It might take years, but I will. Robert drew up a payment plan. $50 a week once you're settled. It'll take time, but that's the point. Rebuilding trust isn't quick. She nodded, wiping her eyes. What about the credit cards? I'm handling those. Consider it a loan added to what you owe. But Sarah, this only works if you commit to change. Real change, not just geographical. I know. I've already made appointments with a therapist in Seattle, someone who specializes in people who've lost their ethical compass. We finished breakfast, discussing practical details. She'd leave Thursday driving her old Honda that she'd kept in storage while leasing a luxury car she couldn't afford. Pete expected her Monday, giving her time to settle in. As we prepared to leave, she asked, "Will you ever trust me again? Really trust me? Ask me in 5 years, after you've shown me who you really are, when no one's watching." Outside the diner, the drizzle had stopped. Weak sunlight broke through the clouds. Sarah hugged me for the first time in 2 years. I'm sorry, Daddy, for everything. For calling your life worthless when it was mine that had no value. Lives can be rebuilt, Sarah. Like the cars in my workshop. It takes time, patience, and honest work. But even the most damaged vehicle can be restored if someone's willing to put in the effort. She drove away in her Honda, heading back to pack what little honestly belonged to her. I went to the workshop where the Corvette waited. As I worked, I thought about second chances and the long road ahead. That afternoon, Dorothy Wellington James called. Phil, I wanted you to know James is doing better. He's thrown himself into work, but he's also seeing a counselor. The experience opened his eyes to some hard truths about judgment and trust. Any word from Marcus? In federal custody, singing like a canary about his illegal lending operation. He'll be in witness protection soon, but not before serving 5 to 7 years. Patricia and the girls are safely in Montana. And your family? Dorothy chuckled, shocked, but ultimately grateful. You did us a favor, Phil. Better to discover a con artist before the wedding than after. Though I must say, your daughter played her role convincingly. In another life, she might have been an actress. She's getting a second chance at an honest life. That's all I can give her. It's more than most would offer. Stay in touch, Phil. I'd like to hear how this story ends. Over the following days, I helped Sarah prepare for her move. We sorted through her apartment, separating what was honestly hers from what had been purchased with stolen funds. The designer clothes, jewelry, and electronics went back to the stores or were sold to pay debts. Wednesday night, her last in town, she came to the house for dinner. I made Margaret's pot roast, the comfort food of her childhood. We ate at the kitchen table where she'd done homework and shared teenage dreams. I found something, I said, pulling out a small box. Your mother wanted you to have this when you got married. Real married to someone you loved honestly. Inside was Margaret's engagement ring, a simple solitaire that had taken me 6 months to save for in 1978. I can't take this. Not after what I've done. Not now, but someday when you've earned it back. when you can wear it with pride instead of shame. Consider it motivation. She held the ring up to the light. Mom always said it was perfect. I used to think she meant despite being small. Now I understand she meant because it represented honest love. Your mother was wise about what mattered. Thursday morning, I helped her load the Honda. Everything she owned fit in the back seat and trunk. A humbling inventory for someone who'd pretended to have so much. Uncle Pete knows about everything. He knows enough. The rest you can tell him when you're ready. He's a good man, Sarah. He'll treat you fairly if you work honestly. What about everyone here? The family, my old friends? They're ready to forgive when you're ready to earn it. Maria especially. She misses her best friend. The real one, not the fiction you became. Sarah nodded, keys in hand. I'll call when I get there. And Dad, thank you. For stopping me, for saving me from Marcus's creditors, for giving me another chance. For everything. Drive safely, work hard, be honest. The rest will follow. I watched her Honda disappear down the street, carrying my daughter toward what I hoped was redemption. Then, I returned to the workshop, to the patient Corvette, and the honest work of restoration. 2 years have passed since that morning. Sarah calls every Sunday, just as Margaret used to insist on when she was in college. She's still in Seattle, still working for Uncle Pete, who reports she's become indispensable. She's paid back half of what she owes, never missing a payment. Last month, she sent a photo. Her and a young man named David, a teacher at the local high school. They met at a coffee shop where she was reading, a book about financial ethics. I told him everything on our third date, she said during our call. About the lies, the stealing, the wedding that wasn't. He thanked me for being honest and asked for a fourth date. Sounds like a smart man. He wants to meet you, maybe at Christmas. I'd like that. James Wellington married a pediatric surgeon last spring. Dorothy sent me an invitation, but I declined. Some wounds heal better without reopening. He's happy, according to Dorothy, with someone who shares his values honestly. Marcus Sterling is in federal prison, his debts cleared by testifying against larger fish. Patricia rebuilt her life in Montana, where her daughters ride horses and grow up free from their father's shadow. And me, I still restore cars in my workshop, though business has improved considerably. Dorothy's endorsement in her social circle brought collectors who value both craftsmanship and character. The Corvette sold for $300,000 to a museum in Detroit. Sometimes on quiet evenings, I sit with photo albums watching Sarah's transformation in reverse. From the broken woman in the wedding dress, back to the bright-eyed child who believed her father could fix anything. The journey forward has been harder than any restoration I've done in the shop, but infinitely more valuable. Margaret was right as usual. People make mistakes, but family means giving them a chance to make things right. Sarah fell as far as a person can fall without breaking completely. But she got up, dusted off the lies, and started the long walk back to becoming someone worth being. Not all stories of betrayal end with reconciliation. Sometimes the damage is too deep, the trust too shattered. But sometimes, if you're patient and strong enough to deliver hard truths, wrapped in harder love, you get something rare, a second chance that actually takes. Last week, Sarah called with news. David proposed. She said yes. But the wedding will be small, honest, and paid for with their own saved money. She asked if I'd walk her down the aisle. Only if you wear Mom's ring, I said. I was hoping you'd say that. I think I've finally earned it. I think so too. So here's my question for all of you. Watching, have you ever had to choose between enabling someone you love or letting them face hard consequences? How did you find the strength to do what was right instead of what was easy? I'd really like to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please give it a like. And consider subscribing for more real-life stories about family redemption and the prices we pay for both. And if you know someone struggling with similar choices, maybe share this with them. Sometimes, knowing you're not alone in making hard decisions can make all the difference. Thank you for listening to An Old Mechanic's Tale, about the hardest restoration project I ever took on, helping my daughter find her way back to the truth. Remember, folks, the most valuable things in life aren't the ones that impress strangers at country clubs. They're the ones that stand the test of time, honest work, and sometimes the hard mercy of consequences. Take care of yourselves and, more importantly, take care of each other, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. That's what real love looks like.